Welcome to the Reactivated Architects of Destiny podcast. We will be back talking to you about all things galactic, but also very practical aspects of spirituality, because what's changed in our world over the last couple of years is that we really realized how important all these spiritual tools are just to resolve real life problems. So if you are here with some real life challenges, listen up, because we will be sharing with you all you need to know about light codes today.
Welcome to the Architects of Destiny podcast, where we bring together wisdom from galactic star nations, as well as very down-to-earth practical insights to accelerate your energetic mastery and spiritual growth trajectory. Tune in to receive the energetic tools you need to step into your divine role as an architect of destiny, to create the life of your desires and co-create the new earth that we can all be proud of. Today we're going to be talking about light codes, consciousness technology, and channeled galactic energy from collective consciousness grids.
So we're going to explain to you the things that people don't explain, because we feel that very often these galactic technologies are put on a pedestal, and in a way people don't like to talk about what's actually going on behind the scenes, because when you take the air of mystery out, perhaps it may feel less magical, but don't worry, it is magical. And as people who have channeled these frequencies for years, we're going to tell you exactly what light codes, or as we prefer to call them, consciousness technology codes are, how we access them, and most importantly, what they can do for you.
And when we talk about consciousness technology, we are talking about channeled frequency from the quantum field, from various collective consciousness grids of extraterrestrial races. And you may have heard them called templates, light codes, grid work, all of these kind of Ascension glossary language terms. But essentially it's referring to the same thing. If anybody comes from our school of teaching, we call it consciousness technology, but we're referring to the same thing. Now, the beauty of consciousness technology is its versatility, and we are able to give you two perspectives on what we call consciousness technology. Firstly, from myself as a multidimensional psychic who's very, very visual. So within my consciousness and my mind, the quantum field is like a silent movie that plays out in Technicolor. And I'm able to actually see collective consciousness grids. I'm able to see the codes. I'm able to see the frequency. But don't worry if you're not visual. We can describe how it feels, because different frequencies have different energetic signatures and they feel very different, don't they?
And not just feel, they feel very different. My experience of the quantum field is not like a silent movie. It's more like a beautiful music kind of soundtrack or something like that, because I would say I'm not visual, because I see things as well in the quantum field, but I mostly feel and hear things as a light language channel, and I express them in the form of sound. So let's get started by explaining briefly what are the light codes, they actually are, because sometimes you see those pictures on the internet where there is rays of sunshine refracting or reflecting, and it's just like, light codes, etc. That's not really what they are. I mean, this not to take away from artistry of pictures like that. That's its own thing. But the kind of consciousness technology codes we talk about are very practical. They do things to your energy field. So how would you explain them? Because you've got some beautiful metaphors going over the years.
Yeah, I do. And I like to, and the way that I teach and the way that we come across is that we bring the ascended into communication in a very grounded, down-to-earth way. So I like to use analogies. Analogies paint a picture, and a picture paints 1,000 words. So just go with me with this. So I want you to imagine your energetic field that sits around you right now. And for those who can't picture that, you've got this electromagnetic field as an energetic spiritual being that sits around you. I call it the egg, and it's not an egg, it doesn't have a yolk, but effectively it's the same shape.
You're the yolk.
Yeah, you're the yolk. But effectively it's the same shape as an egg, okay? Now within this, there are patterns, there are programs, and it's like a computer system that runs within the background. Think of consciousness technology as upgrades to your energetic field that boost your frequency signature in certain areas. So the analogy I want to draw your attention to is, if anybody's into cars, okay, and if you're not into cars, don't worry about it, but you'll get what I'm talking about. In most modern cars, they have an ECU, which is an electronic control unit. It's like the computer that runs everything. It tells the car how much fuel and oxygen and everything to pull in. Well, people can take their cars to certain garages or maintenance service centers, and they can get what's called a remap. And a remap basically is a new computer program that goes into the car, and it tells the car either to perform better, so pull more fuel and oxygen in so there's more acceleration, or if people want to try and economize on their vehicle, they can make the car more fuel efficient by changing the computer program. Your energetic field is no different. So start to think of consciousness technology like upgrades to your field, but it doesn't affect just your car. It affects your entire reality, your communication, how people perceive you, all of the things within your life, not just around communication, but around opportunities, around everything else that your field is calling in. You can upgrade your frequency resonance in whatever area that you choose. And you know the most interesting thing? Because there are countless extraterrestrial races, and we'll probably name a few in this podcast for you, that feel very, very different. Now, depending on what it is that you're looking for as an upgrade, also depends which collective consciousness grid that you're going to go and get it from. So think of the collective consciousness grids like a store or like a shop. For those in Europe, I know in America you probably call it store, but the place that you go and get things from, right? Now, it's good to know the best shop for the best things, right? So,
and even better to be friends with a shopkeeper,
Yeah.
which is how we actually act as channels and energy workers. We have our favorite friends in different consciousness grids, the Arcturians, the Sirians, the Andromedans, who specialize in different things. And that's, I think, probably the first thing that nobody tells you about light codes, is that it's not just one generic thing. They come from various consciousness technology grids, from various galactic nations, and they all specialize in different things. Mm-hmm. However, at the same time, maybe someone also doesn't say that, is that basically they have codes for the same thing in different races. So, for example, soon I will be doing an expansion codes activation. If you're watching this before 29th of January, you can join via the link. But I will be channeling some abundance codes because we'll be concentrating on abundance. And okay, none of the galactic races have the financial system like we do, but they all live abundant lives. But abundance according to Andromedans is different than abundance according to Arcturians, than abundance according to the Syrians or the Libran felines. So they do specialize in their things, but there's also different flavors of the same codes, and you can consecutively download and upload them all to your field.
I'll give an example of this, which leads on nicely from abundance. And don't forget that abundance itself, whatever that means for you, holds a certain frequency signature. And so therefore you can upgrade the abundance in your life in many, many different areas. So please check out the activation. However, I want to draw your attention to a different set of codes, something which we've pioneered within our work over the years. And these are what's called, or what I've called, the codes of bitter medicine.
If you ever heard of codes of bitter medicine, you probably came across a fellow student who kind of learned from us, because that's our galactic consciousness technology. We haven't got a patent for it, but definitely the name comes from us.
So the codes of bitter medicine are phenomenal. And this is something that I discovered a few years ago on my own journey of healing, and I was connecting to my star family. So where I've come from as a starseed is the Arcturian race from Arcturus, and as such I've got a silly sense of humor. That's just the essence of the Arcturians, which is amazing. But I connected to them, and they gave me almost like this upgrade, this frequent, or access to that frequency, this upgrade around healing. They're called the codes of healing. Since then, I've called them the codes of bitter medicine, simply because of the effect it has on people. So that was the term that I came up with. However, When I was given it, the title that was given to me by the Arcturians was the Codes of Inner Healing, but I've called them the Codes of Bitter Medicine simply because they cause the purge. Now, I'll come to the purge in just a second, but I just want to talk about the different flavors of healing frequency and the different races that you can get it from. So the Arcturians gave me access to this first, and I was spending time with them, and I loved learning with them and studying with them. And effectively, they just kind of pushed me out the nest after a while and they said, look, you're always welcome here, but if you want to learn, grow, and develop, there are probably other races that you want to go and spend time with. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll go off and explore then. And I'm so happy that I did. So when I started to meet different races years ago with my consciousness and connect to them, part of the study that I had with each of these races was being given access to and being attuned to their various healing frequencies. And two of the other races that I also download and channel, as somebody who can channel energy, Galactic, Codes of Bitter Medicine, or healing frequency. I'll come to what it does in a second, but I just want to explain about this. Then there are two other races that I work with too to channel that frequency. So the first was the Arcturians, like I mentioned to you, my star family. The second is the Syrians. And then thirdly is the Pleiadians. Now, those three different healing frequencies come at different strengths. So it would simply come down to the person that you're working with, or I was working with, or if you're learning to channel this stuff yourself, because we do teach that, it's an appreciation of what's there to be healed. So let me give you just a bit more of a breakdown. The most gentle healing frequency is the Syrian healing frequency. That's a more gentle, gradual release over time. So if somebody's been through something super, super traumatic, and there are many things, right? I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of clients. There are lots of people who've been through a lot of tough stuff. That Syrian frequency is a bit more gentle and gets the job done, but it's just more gentle and over time. Arcturian frequency sits in the middle. That's a bit more robust, a bit stronger, and it's a good all-round healing frequency. It's not too strong, but it's strong enough that it's a bit more intense. That's kind of middle of the road. And then you've got people who are more suited to Pleiadian frequency. Now, Pleiadian frequency is
That's
off.
for those nuts that are tough to crack.
Emotionally.
People who have held back the emotions for years. A lot of men who bottle up and literally perhaps talking about what happened is not really the case. Pleiadian frequencies for you guys just to kind of break through the ice.
Yeah, it's such a strong frequency because they've got such a high energetic signature. For those who have experienced Pleiadian frequency, it's off the charts. And so you've got three options there, or we've got three options that we work with and that we're attuned to and that we can channel. So that is what it causes. It causes the purge. What's the purge? So when we download and channel this consciousness technology, in this example, we're calling it the Codes of Bitter Medicine. This heals pain and trauma. What happens with pain and trauma? So pain and trauma as a body of frequency gets stored in the body. Okay, so every time you go through anything that's traumatic, and back to your childhood, and I'm sure if you're watching this and you can remember some things that really, really hurt you and still tap into those emotions, it's because the emotions are stored in different parts of the body. So what happens is when this frequency comes down and is channeled into, with consent, into somebody's energetic field, it starts to stimulate and starts to stir up all of this frequency within somebody's body. And all that happens, it's like going in and shaking up a jar of liquid that's got sediment at the bottom. Sediment is the pain. And it's like going in and shaking that. And all of a sudden you get these sediments that start to come to the surface. The pain starts to get released by the body and it comes up to the surface to be processed. So how does somebody experience this? This can be intense. It leads to what's I call the emotional purge. And it leads to the point where people are literally purging, in some instances, this pain frequency out of their chest. It is intense, but using and utilizing consciousness technology cuts down the healing time. It might take somebody years if they're journaling and going through a process. You can cut down somebody's healing journey into a few short months using this technique.
Absolutely. And, when we first pioneered this and discovered this, we first obviously experimented on ourselves and we didn't know how it worked to start with. And I remember, Codes of Inner Healing, maybe I'll just feel better inside. And then all the old memories, I remember first time we started working it, we lived on an equestrian farm in South Australia back then. And I remember driving to the gym and feeling like basically all the old emotions and all the old memories start coming back. And I'm like driving, I think I was driving behind some firefighters, and then all of a sudden I remember some fire trainings that I was holding for my staff that takes me back to the business we had that failed, that all the pain and trauma with that, and it's just opened like a can of worms. But at the same time, you process it quite quickly, you integrate it, and then you feel better. And here is something that it leads me to. This is also something that people don't understand about light codes, because people think in generally that it's about doing a lot of activations. And as someone who's a light language channel who does a lot of activations, and very often that's how people first come across your frequency or come across galactic frequency. So I channel a lot. I do a lot of that work where I do, YouTube videos, TikTok videos with which people feel those codes, etc. But that is literally not going to work until your field can actually hold these codes. And this is something that is sometimes a tough pill to swallow, because you feel like, I'm just going to do a lot of abundance activations. Fantastic. Abundance activations are great. They're great, but you can take advantage of them way better when you have already reconciled not just the emotional pain and trauma that we mentioned from your lifetime, but also if you have resolved ancestral pain and trauma around, let's say, finances or resources or whatever. So basically, how we see consciousness technology is like a part of a bigger system of metaphysical tools that need to be used in conjunction. First, you clear the deck. It's like, you won't be, if you have a lot of clutter in your house, sometimes you have to declutter first before bringing some new beautiful furniture in. That's exactly how it works with light codes. Basically, if you have a lot of energetic clutter in your field, ancestral patterns, karmic patterns, etc., unless you take care of this, those light codes won't really take. They won't have an effect, or they will give you a temporary boost. But if you have done all the work and then you do the light codes, that is when you actually reap the benefits, because those light codes can hold certain frequency in your field and reprogram it pretty much permanently.
But it's, as Ria was saying there, the effects, if you haven't done the shadow work and you haven't healed the pain and trauma, the effects of these activations, these consciousness technology upgrades are muted, because you've got this weight of frequency emotion that is dragging down your overall energetic signature. It's polluting your energetic signature. And so I know the temptation is, and this is, I'm speaking really to the people who are more new to this space, who are just coming, you've probably just gone through the awakening. Now it's kind of, you're exploring all of the galactic stuff. You come into this realization of who you truly are and your place in the universe and the world. Welcome, it's amazing. But the difficult part is when we first go through the awakening, the temptation is to focus on the exciting spiritual development side of things and just park working through the pain and trauma, because it's uncomfortable, it hurts, it's the stuff that's hurt us the most. But the reality is, if you really want to springboard your spiritual development, the best thing that you can do is just get that shadow work out the way, get it done and dusted as early as possible, condensed as quickly as possible, and then literally you're off to the races spiritually.
And that's another point we want to make, is that basically that's now talking more to people who perhaps have done shadow work to varying degrees, sometimes for years, and things are not shifting. Well, you perhaps still have energetic patterns in your field that you still haven't resolved, and you probably don't even know how exactly to trace and resolve them. This also doesn't have to be a journey of forever healing. How we see this is that, I see it like that. Healing restores the baseline. If you think about a baseline being things just being generally okay, how things would have been if you didn't get hurt, if you didn't experience pain and trauma, if you didn't have setbacks due to maybe your ancestry or karmic bonds or whatever. Healing and including what we do with codes of bitter medicine, restores that baseline. But what's above the baseline is the whole expansion. And this is where we headed. So we can't just think just healing pain and trauma, but we can't also think expansion. It's almost like there has to be an order to things. So first healing pain and trauma, and then we enter the territory of expansion. And the territory of expansion is basically answering the question, how good can it get? How much goodness am I willing to allow into my life? Which you think that you would like to allow all of the goodness, I take all of the abundance, but in reality, if you already had this wired in your energy field, you would be already experiencing it. So there's still possibly something holding it back. And expansion is also something that needs to be worked on, because sometimes our nervous system blows up when it's too much goodness. We're not used to it. We like, people who perhaps have, a little bit what the analogy that springs to my mind in Shawshank Redemption, that guy that has become institutionalized in the prison and he tastes the freedom
can't cope
with it.
Yeah.
That's the expansion for us sometimes.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like when we think about how good things can get, they can get infinitely good. The universe is infinite, the quantum field is infinite, there are infinite potentials. So there's no upper limit on how good it can get. However, what can be stopping you is what's in your field, your nervous system and body. So you need to work with that too. This is a symbiotic relationship. We need to look at this whole thing holistically and actually get you out of your own way to reach that success and to reach the highest levels, isn't it?
Absolutely. And remember, the consciousness technology and all of these tools we mentioned are ultimately actually there for you to have a better life. And especially when we are getting those consciousness technology codes from the galactic races, it's because they know how tough we have, and we are the volunteers, those earthlings that decided to incarnate right here are like the heroes of the Arcturian race, the Syrian race, the Andromedan race, and so on and so forth. So it's almost like a little bit of help, which is in exchange for what we've already done by volunteering on that Earth mission. So if you are having it tough, please know you have not come here to suffer. You can absolutely change things around, and Galactic Consciousness Technology is there to help you with it, amongst a plethora of other beautiful quantum tools that we're happy to share with you.
So where can people find out more?
Well, the process that takes everything and puts it in a beautiful kind of package with a bow is our 6 months program, Transcending Dimensions. At the moment of recording this podcast, the enrollment is about to open and is the 5th edition already. We've taken 5 groups of beautiful souls through this process of first purging, releasing patterns, ancestral, karmic, your own past life projections, collective consciousness grids.
Pain and trauma,
of course. And then upgrading your field and teaching you how to also channel those codes for yourself. So it's not just, yes, you can come and we give you a plethora of codes, but you also learn how to do it yourself. So first we go through this kind of descent, then we go through the ascent, which is that expansion, and then we stabilize in the embodiment process. The 6 month process, absolutely solid, and we will link to it also here in this video.
But it also brings online all of the spiritual abilities, doesn't it? So for instance, I'm, I would say, an expert in the Akashic realm. So I'm able to read terrestrial past lives and also galactic past lives, because spoiler alert, our soul and our consciousness has lived many, many lifetimes before this one. And we've lived all over the place as different extraterrestrial races. And so you've got 2 halls of records in the Akashic realm, one containing all the records of your human experiences. And then there's another hall of records, which I'm able to read around your extraterrestrial lifetimes. And I teach people how to do this. So if you've got a soul, a consciousness, and a pineal gland, then you've got all of the equipment designed to be able to access these spiritual abilities. So I teach you how to be able to do this.
How to read your past lives. I teach, and you know what the overall feedback is always when we take those groups of Transcending Dimensions participants to the Akashic Records, it's like, that was easy. I thought it would be hard. And other abilities come online, psychic abilities. Light languages is almost guaranteed. You come to my space, your light language will activate, obviously if you want it. But that happens very, very often. So if you are interested in following a process and actually not just learning about all these techniques from theory, but actually doing what we've done, which is trying them on your own energetic system in a very practical way so that everything in your life improves, from finances, from relationships, from vitality and health, please check Transcending Dimensions out. This program has its own frequency, by the way. So if you feel a pull, it's because you feel its frequency. It's your free will choice, but if you feel it, tune into it. You can tune into the frequency. It's almost there like an energetic display window. If it resonates, there is a form that you can fill in. Schedule a conversation with one of us, and let's talk about your healing and expansion journey.
So we'll link that in the description below. That'll come through to the form. And like I say, fill in a form. Please feel free to check that out. And like I say, we're beginning shortly over the next few weeks. We hold it once a year. So the next time after this program will be 2027. So if you're interested in joining 2026, you know what to do. And there was another thing, wasn't there? There was the expansion activation.
Yes, so I mentioned it already, but that's only if you're here before 29th of January. If you're watching it, check the expansion activation that we'll link to below, where you can experience all these light codes for yourself. For today, thank you so much for being with us till the very end, and we hope to see you on the next episode. If you have any ideas of what you would like us to cover in the following episodes, pop the comment below and we'll definitely consider it in our upcoming trainings, classes, and also podcast episodes.
And I just want to say it's really, really good to be back on the Architects of Destiny podcast. So we'll see you on the next one. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.